I'm excited to have everybody on the Hire Talent podcast today, optimizing the hiring process. I've got a really great guest, Deb Venable. She's a 27-year veteran as an entrepreneur, and now for the last couple of years, she's been teaching people her secrets to sales as a sales extraordinaire coach. And I thought this was really interesting. We ran into each other the other day. We haven't had anybody on who is such a specialized guru with salespeople, and this is such a common issue that comes up. Hiring great salespeople is hard, right? We've all been there. We've all been frustrated. We've probably all failed in this department once or twice in our lives. So I thought it was a great topic. I'm really glad to have you on, Deb.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me come today.
Awesome. So I guess a little bit about your background. So currently running a B2B coaching, sales coaching, really business. And so you're a leader in sales strategy, sales coaching, sales training. You have an amazing passion for people and helping them progress in their work and helping businesses progress in their sales efforts to make a significant impact on the predictable and sustainable growth year over year, something I think we're all striving for. And even if we've got it, we want to do better at it. She has a background for 27 years, ran a trade show business, so helping people get the equipment and the stuff they need to make an impactful presentation at trade shows. And I'm sure dealing with a lot of salespeople and doing a lot of sales yourself, and really refine this process on how to get the most out of your sales efforts through that. So that's a really great experience to be able to share with everybody, especially up and coming entrepreneurs. You do a lot of work with those folks, and that's very admirable. As we're young in our entrepreneurial lives, we definitely need to figure this out, to be successful. So awesome. So how'd this come about? I understand you had this business for a long time, but how'd you decide to become a coach?
Yeah, so trade shows, 25 years, I did that, designed them, sold them, built them, serviced them, and it was a fantastic run. Even though during all those 25 years of running the business, I always gravitated towards the sales side. I always gravitated towards wanting to communicate with clients, wanting to help my internal salespeople grow and do awesome things. One of my top salespeople, she was our receptionist, turned into sales extraordinaire. So I always just had this passion for it, and luckily I had great partnership for 25 years with my partners, and decided that I wanted to kind of take my life in a different direction, and came up with a great exit strategy, and said I'm going to go off and do my own thing now, and learned a lot in those 25 years. And that's why I am very passionate and very connected to my clients, because a lot of them I've lived their life, and I know how hard it is to hire salespeople, to train them, to keep them, to know how much to pay them, all those kind of things. So it's been very invigorating for me now to go into companies and help them build their sales teams.
Yeah. And that really, in our world with assessments and helping assess people and really try to figure out who the best person is, I think we have a lot of conversations with people. They come to us and they want to hire a different kind of salesperson than they've had before, or their first salesperson, or their sales system isn't working. And we try to spend a lot of time with them just trying to understand the foundational stuff. So, we find that, they sort of lack a little direction. They like hire a salesperson, kind of throw them out there, but there's no real plan in place or understanding of what the job really is. So if you're a company, I always believe this is step one: set this foundation, this plan. If you're a company and trying to prepare, how do you do this effectively so that it actually works?
Yeah. No, really, at the end of the day, the salesperson is going to succeed or fail a lot because of what you've given them to start off with, right? You can't just blindly throw somebody into a sales position and say, go sell, right?
Yeah.
And you as a company, just like you need to have your, kind of mission and your, core values figured out, you really need to have your sales roadmap, your playbook, your strategy, whatever it is,
Yeah.
mapped out where you truly know who your clients are, who your competitors are, things like that. So in building any kind of sales team, the team needs to know what they're going after. And I'm going to stress very heavily, though, that it has to be documented. You really need to have a document that says, okay, where is this written down, our process, and, is it one email and 3 emails, 4 phone calls? Like, what does it look like?
Yeah.
Say that, because once you've written something down and then you live it, you go back and you realize, okay, things are changing. I mean,
Mhm.
during these days of COVID, everybody's had to go back and revamp their sales program. But if they never had it documented in the first place, then they're just all shooting at the hip. So
Yeah.
definitely the lack of direction when you're trying to hire salespeople starts with, make sure you don't have a lack of direction in the company and where you're going, what you're, which problem you're solving for your clients, and things like that, because that's really the first step, is to
Yeah.
have this kind of foundation as you were describing it.
Yeah, so you start with that company vision and strategy and mission, right? And if that's
Yep.
done well, then that trickles down to the salespeople, and that really allows, really understanding who that customer is, who needs this service or product. And
Right.
yeah, I see that a lot. And then, but it plays into all these other factors, right? Where like, how do I get in contact with these people? And if I don't know who I need to go to, I don't necessarily know which channel is the best, right? And then a lot of times I see people, giving salespeople like administrative and marketing oriented
Mhm.
tasks like
Yep.
data mining. In a lot of ways, I mean, that's not really like their job. It should be so clear to me that here's your target, here's the information you need to get in touch with them, here's what you need to, the message that you need to deliver, and then here's the solution that you need to help them solve, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, it's got to be clear. And I love the going back piece. I mean, because as you realize, maybe it breaks down in certain parts of the process, then you can go back and clearly
Yeah.
revise it. That's really good. Yeah. And I mean, this kind of plays into the similar question, but what kind of salesperson do you need, right?
Yeah.
I
Right.
see this a lot. Like when people are like, well, should I hire somebody from who's in my industry, who knows my business, who, I want to hire a competitor basically, right?
Right.
Or, do you hire an entry level person and, teach them, or do you hire somebody outside of your sector, but maybe has relatable experiences?
Sure.
How do we figure that out?
So just like you were, talking a little bit about the foundation, and I was, kind of seconding that, program. I also would say to figure out what kind of salesperson you need. Once you've figured out what your sales process is, you'll start to understand, does, my marketing really push to sales, or my salespeople just need to be continuing the conversation and pushing it down the line? Or is it my salespeople are the ones that are going to be breaking down doors, knocking over pillars to get to people? So there's all sorts of different salespeople. It could be a technical sale, like an engineering firm. It could be a very
Mm.
consultative sale, kind of like I had in the trade show world, where you showed up with a blank piece of paper and said, we're going to draw you a beautiful booth. Financial services, that's a different sale too, because
Very
you
relationship, right?
yeah, you're really selling a relationship, not just a product, right? I'm not just selling this, this cute pen kind of thing. So what I would say about what kind of salesperson is, it flows with what kind of sales process you have. And just like you were saying that you've got some great assessment tools when it comes to recruiting, that is very key in trying to figure out what kind of salesperson, because if you need that hunter, right, or that relationship person, know that, because sometimes the best customer service people that you think would be amazing at sales don't like to ask for money,
Mhm.
and don't like to be the ones that have to ask the tougher questions that sometimes salespeople do have to ask. I need to know your budget. Customer
Yeah.
service people just want to fix the problem and make it happy. So if you know your sales process, you'll kind of know, do I need heavy account managers? Do I need heavy, outbound salespeople, inbound salespeople? And then yes, you can run assessments on these people to kind of know where they naturally gravitate
Mhm.
towards.
Yeah.
because that'll help for sure.
Yeah. Position them in the right place. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that roadmap is key to deciding what's the makeup of the team, the mixture from marketing and sales, or,
Yeah.
which activities. And, many times, you see a lot more mature companies have multiple different types of salespeople, as you were kind of
Yes.
mentioning there. And
Yes.
yeah, that's an important thing to discover. I think this is all the foundational stuff that we really got to think about. And yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that drives me crazy is somebody's like, I want to hire the top performing guy from
Right.
my competitor. So this is somebody who's got probably like a big book of business, but yet I want them to sit down and make 100 cold calls every day. That
Right.
top performing person with a big book of business isn't making 100 cold calls a day and doesn't want to do that. And
Yeah.
they're making a lot of money. So in order to attract them, you're going to have to pay them more than they're worth to make a bunch of cold calls.
Hmm.
Right. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
And often they have strings attached. Often they're
Yeah.
non-competes or some legal issues that might arise if they do come over to you, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you tell me about the hiring process that you recommend to your clients. I didn't throw this on our pre-script, but I just realized
Okay.
we probably should talk about this before we talk about the next question. So, if you had to design a hiring process for salespeople, what's that kind of ideal roadmap for you?
Right. So the ideal roadmap definitely is number one, have that foundation, know what you're selling, know what your sales process is. That'll lead into you defining what kind of salesperson, right? Like
Yeah.
what's the real key, metrics that they have to have from an HR standpoint. And then yes, it could be working with someone like you to kind of say we need to have these key elements, go out and recruit those kind of people. um, if you have an internal system that
Yeah.
does that alone, but it really does go out matching the skills to what you're trying to sell. So am I a proponent of hiring somebody that has experience? Yes, but again, if their experience and their skills match up what you are as a company, what you guys are selling.
Mhm.
So the process though still has to be, have the plan, know the person you're looking for, and then that key element though is to make sure that you can pick from a pool of good people, and that is
Yeah.
really
So the
screening out a lot of junk.
third step
Yeah.
is build that pool of relevant people, and we see that a lot, right? Where they build a great pool of people, but they're, these are account managers, and you're looking for hunters, right? And
Yes.
they we don't really realize that we have the wrong people in the pool, even though they might be attractive people.
Right.
It might be very successful, but it just doesn't match the job
Yeah.
description very well.
Right. And then it's interesting too, because sometimes you get those referrals, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got a friend of a friend. And that could work because, people that, birds of a feather flock together kind of thing. But you do have to
Sure.
be careful that there's no, nepotism or kind of special treatment for any of those people. So sometimes I even try to stay away from that a little bit. Again, you need to look at more just the skills, and are they
Yeah.
trainable? Are they open to being able to learn
Yeah.
your way?
Well, and a referral is simply putting somebody into the pool, right? And so just like running an ad is, or using a recruiter, I mean, most recruiters, I mean, the first job of a recruiter is just build the pool, right?
Right.
Build people who, and ideally, if they're bringing in people that are, could be potentially good matches, then, that's what you're looking for. And same thing with that referral, right? So you have to then screen your pool to narrow it down so that it's
Yes.
relevant. Yeah. And what have you guys done in the past to when you've got all these things, and exactly, you maybe have a great referral, maybe this person's fantastic, but how do you, so you need to put them through the same process, or as opposed to just,
Yeah, I mean, we believe a lot in assessment tools. We really do. There's a lot of assessment tools out there. You have some too, and
yeah,
and I do believe in the assessment tools because I do believe they give you that kind of unbiased, just very kind of a natural look into who they really are as a person.
yeah,
And I think you
no
and I have
no
talked
emotions.
about, right, and I think you and I have talked about this before, where sometimes you just really like somebody. You just really have like a great chemistry with them, which is fantastic. But again, who are they like deep down inside naturally? So I am a big believer in the assessment tools to just really get to know somebody deep down inside and kind of weed out others that maybe are putting on a good show, but
Yeah.
then when they get in, they were putting on the good show for you and during that sales interview, but now that they're in the mix, they hate cold calling. They can't stand it, and it's just something that they're not going to bite on.
Yeah.
So definitely the screening side and
So
the
they're
assessments are great.
they don't like having to confront people and ask the hard questions, right? You
Right,
know, like,
right.
are you ready? Are you ready to buy? And then have to deal with the no, and then have to
Sure.
deal with the next question, right? In
Yep.
sales, right? That's so. I mean, I tell my salespeople, hey, go for the no. Like,
Absolutely.
I want to hear a no.
Yep.
If look, this isn't the right fit, then I want to hear the no, and then I want to understand why, and then let me help solve that problem, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, maybe I didn't really understand your problem to begin with, so let's go back, right? And a lot of times in the sales process, you got to open and close those doors and revisit things because you know
Yeah.
maybe the buyer didn't open up, we
Yeah.
didn't dig deep enough early enough, right?
And the other thing I would bring up is that when you ask about hiring somebody that's, brand new that I can train or that has experience that I don't have to train, that's a misconception. You should always hire people that are trainable.
Yeah.
Always. And so from a recruiting standpoint, that is a big red flag that you should look for is, does this person truly have the ability to be trainable? Because I don't care if you're right out of school or you have 30 years experience in some kind of industry, you should always be learning. You should always be open-minded to what's the next thing, what's the next sales process, next technique, whatever it might be. So I always believed that I wanted to hire people that were truly trainable. Our receptionist that went to being one of our top salesperson, people, the reason she was like that is because she was very open-minded, very much like eager to just always be learning. So sometimes you have to be careful that if you do hire somebody who has the book of business, they know what they're doing, they're going to be shut off and not want to necessarily listen to maybe new ideas, new methods, new ways
Yeah.
to make sales happen.
They're
So
not going to like it when you give them a new system or like put them into Salesforce all of a sudden and they were using Zoho or whatever, right? And now
yep,
you have to train them how to do that and they don't want to do it and they don't really feel like they need to because, in some ways they don't, but you do because the company needs the data, right? In order to make decisions, So yeah,
yes.
you run into these issues and yeah, I mean, really good salespeople are notorious for what we call being problem generators. They, I'm sure you've experienced a few of these, right? They might
Yes.
be amazing, but they might be amazing at sales, but they're like just causing problems everywhere else, leaving a trail of like chaos behind them, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So you need to look for that team player, that trainable, that,
wow.
good attitude. Yeah, all that kind of
So,
stuff for sure.
so how do you assess people? I mean, aside from a testing, I mean, that's obviously great. And you can either use it, depending on your situation, you use it early or mid or towards the end of a process. But, what is the other steps? I mean, you're going to do some interviews. How many? Do you do anything else? I mean, what else are you recommending people do to determine whether they've got a high quality candidate that actually might be able to do the job?
Sure. So obviously we do a lot of checking up on referrals and things like that. And I know that
Okay.
can be sensitive if somebody's
Yeah.
trying to
References.
leave a job and they're not able to, but we do try to look for that credibility, right? And
Yeah.
so we do look at their LinkedIn. We
Mhm.
will take a look and see, where they posted, where they're engaging, where they're not. We'll look and see who's recommended them. We do ask them for references and referral, but we try to ask them also for references and referrals to clients that they've worked with,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And really tried to say, like, who have you worked with that you'd feel comfortable? And good salespeople have very personal relationships with a lot of these clients that it shouldn't matter if it's a sticky situation or not. A lot of times you're able to call on them.
Yeah.
Also, it's interesting. I've seen a lot of resumes that say, "Oh, I was the top salesperson for so many years in a row." Well, those are the kind of things. I mean, it's a free world out there, right? So sometimes we'll Google those and be like, okay, if they were at JP Morgan, and they did have the top sales. A lot of times you'll see those in like press releases or whatever. And then I start to go, okay, this guy's telling the truth. It's there. But if we start kind of poking around and looking and saying some of these dots aren't connecting, it doesn't help.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
yes, we do try to have them meet and interview with a lot of different people. It shouldn't be a surprise that we're going to check references. So we always say, when we call your references, what will they
Yeah.
say about you?
Yeah.
Things like that.
Some torque moves, right?
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep. And so, I think one of the things you have to recognize is, though, if you're not good at this, then don't do it.
Yeah.
So
In sales, you have a lot of salespeople who are not successful, and right, they're
yeah,
jumping from sales job to sales job, and they're living
yeah.
off their base, and maybe they make a little bit of commission along the way, but they're really not all that great at it, right?
No. But then
Yeah.
also on the flip side is if you are not great at hiring people, so if you're the business owner or you're the HR, HR should be good at it, but going kind of picking back off of what you guys do for a living, I mean, I say that too. It's like, okay, if you are not good at evaluating people and asking people questions and really judging them, then don't do it. So some of my clients are really good at it. They have a really good system. They're just good at knowing how to pick up.
Yeah.
But then I have a lot of clients that are very impatient. So when you want
Yeah.
to talk about trying to find and hire good salespeople, you should be doing it every single day. It should be that waitress that you thought gave you great service. It should be, somebody that you sat next to on a train that you struck up a conversation with. You should have this Rolodex going of all times of just good people that you've met and connected with. It shouldn't be, oh, I need a salesperson. I run an ad, I pick one.
Yeah.
Because if you do it that way, it's too impatient, and you end up just firing, from the hip, and you're done.
Well,
So if
and
you don't have the patience to really hire the right people, and then again really train them and really spend the time with them, then you shouldn't be doing it. You should be outsourcing all of it then.
yeah. Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. It's like, if you're not a good accountant, don't do your own books, right?
No, exactly. That's exactly right. Yep,
It'll
exactly.
be disaster guaranteed. No,
Yep.
and,
Because
and
I hate how many times people have said, "Oh, I just have a good gut feeling about this person,"
yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
like you could. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
that your gut doesn't tell you the truth, but if that gut has failed you 3 times in a row, then stop listening to your gut and go get some help.
And the gut is more of a disqualifier for me. It's like, look, if I just can't stand the person, then I mean that probably is never going to change for me, right? Like I'm always just not
Right.
going to like them, right? For whatever reason, and that may be right or wrong, but that to me is more of a disqualifier than, But yeah, if I really like this person, that's a red flag for me to slow down, to even
Sure.
dig deeper, to follow a more objective process, to not skip steps, and yeah, to really dig deep, because those rose-colored glasses. I mean, you see it with salespeople all the time, right? They're telling me the things I want to hear, but then you forget to ask those probing questions to really figure out what their real problem is. You get to the end, you ask for the business, they say no, and kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. You got to start all over again. Hope
Yes.
if you can at that point,
Right.
right?
Right.
If the door's not completely shut on you, yeah.
Yeah.
We do a coaching program for people who want to be better at hiring, and I love it because I think it's very synergistic with sales training.
Absolutely.
Because the key for sales training, right? Well, so references you talked about, and I'm a huge fan of references. In fact, we're co-authoring a study with Bowling Green State University, #1 assessment academic think tank in the country, and I mean we looked at the impact of references, and we definitely found that previous supervisors provide the most constructive feedback
Right.
above and beyond any other references, and it's absolutely critical. And a lot of times we get a lot of objections, and we allow those objections to stop us from speaking to those people. And
Sure.
I love talking to clients and colleagues. It can be very important depending on the type of role. It can tell you a lot. And so we have references. I'm so glad you brought that up, because obviously I'm an assessment guy, but from an interviewing strategy, there is nothing more powerful than the conversation and the actual collecting and speaking to references. So
Right.
I think it's so critical. Yeah. Um, but that's where sales starts, right? You go in with a credibility statement, which is a reference, and then the art of being a great salesperson ultimately is the art of being curious, right?
Yes.
And
Yes,
that's
exactly.
the same skill that you use as an interviewer. Is you're
Yeah.
really really curious, then you'll peel that onion back and get to the truth. And sometimes it's hard to do when you like have butterflies about the person because you'll.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So okay, this is kind of your cup of tea, and I've seen this time and time again in all sorts of roles. But you hire somebody who's great, everything checks out. I mean, track record of success. Previous supervisors are like glowing reviews. Assessments seem to indicate that they're really well aligned for the role that they're at. Um, you know, I recommend working interviews. I've done a working interview that went well, and then we hire them, and this is often where things just fall apart, right? So what are you recommending? How do we train and onboard people more effectively?
Okay, so this is where you do have to put on the patient's hat, and you do have to make sure that you've got an actual legitimate program. And it does take weeks, if not months, for people to form new habits. So
Yeah.
even if, whether it's a customer service role or if it's a true hunter role or whatever it is in between, yes, I understand that that's in the sales capacity, but it doesn't mean that they know you, your rhythm, your systems, your everything.
Where the water cooler's at.
Yeah. And so I would say that most companies don't really truly take the time, slow down, have that process, have that training. And so again, you can't just tell somebody, here's the playbook, go read it, go do it. It is the role playing, it is the checking in on them, it is making them shadow other people. It is kind of testing them along the way. It is really being involved with them, and again, I recommend 12 weeks. I mean, I truly say
Yeah.
that it's a 12-week ramp up for you to really, really be able to get in with somebody that is going to work. And I say that because we all know, as sad as it sounds, that that when they're in the interview, they're going to be like at their absolute best, like, okay, they're all buttoned up. And then as life goes on, you start to get to know them and get to know them, get to know them.
Mm.
And so that's when, during that 12 weeks, you'll start to see if, okay, maybe in the interview they did say, yep, I have no problem asking for budgets. But then you watch them and you see that they are struggling. Then if everything else is lining up and maybe that one little thing isn't, that's a red flag for you to just coach them and train them a little bit more. So again, product, service, whatever it might be, it doesn't matter. You've got to just keep training them. And I really do say 12 weeks of solid repetition. And that's often something that a sales manager has momentum on, and then they lose it.
Mm-hmm.
They'll do like a couple weeks and then
So what's like a good cadence? How would you structure those 12 weeks? I mean, yeah.
Right. So how I would structure them is the first couple weeks is truly nothing but who you are. It's got to be them drinking from your water cooler. It's got to be them knowing your mission statement, your core values, to really understand you as a business. And so again, not knowing, you at all, it's talking to the key leadership people. It's talking to some of your, the employees. So I do recommend a lot of shadowing, a lot of like entrenchment into that. One of the fun things I used to do is basically their first week of work. We used to always say, okay, who's taking, Susie, new person out for lunch today, right?
Yeah.
And those kind of things to just really get them to be part of the team. And then a lot of shadowing. Okay, if I'm supposed to be making phone calls, I'm going to sit in on the top salesperson's, office, and I'm going to hear them make calls, right? So slowly doing like the shadowing and taking notes on how that works, and then going into, okay, now that you've heard how it works, let's do some role playing. Okay, then you start making your own calls with me in the room, and then next thing you know, you could be making your own calls and ride-alongs. Same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, have
Yeah.
an opportunity for a sale. I watch you do the sale. Okay, now then we're doing the sale together. Next thing you know, you're backing away and letting me do the sale. So it's got to be that deliberate, repetitive kind of easing in and easing out.
So my father always
Training
said
program.
it's a see one, do one, teach one, and sometimes we can replace. I mean, the teach one could be role playing. You know, it could be me just explaining to you how to do it, or it could be, that even a little bit of that execution piece, but that absorbing the information to the point that you can now show somebody else how to do it, right? Piece.
Exactly.
And yeah, that takes time, right? So yeah, I love it. So yeah, so a lot of shadowing, and then a lot of kind of structured check-ins on a regular basis. And I think for a sales manager, and I've led sales teams, and it was always difficult if I didn't myself have a routine in how I was going to do this, because
Right.
I'm all over the place. I don't remember that. I don't may not be the most enjoyable activity to have to do role play with somebody. I don't want to do that, but you got to do it, right? It's part of your job.
It's the deliberate
Yeah.
practice. Yes.
But yeah, so about 3 months to really get somebody from hired to sort of in a rhythm where they're performing at some level. I mean, do you think at 3 months that, I mean, I'm sure in some roles that they could be performing at their forever expectation, but I mean, do you think even at 3 months, most people are really hitting their kind of top level of achievement?
No. I mean, it really, at the end of the day, depends on how long your sales cycle
Yeah.
is and a lot of those kind of factors. But no, I mean, I've always said after the 3 months, you'll kind of know if the person has the will and the capacity to kind of keep moving forward. Because
There should be
unfortunately,
indications of success, but it's not going to be
yeah,
like 100% quota or something, right?
right, because I would rather see you spend 12 weeks of deliberate practice, repetition, training on somebody and realize after 12 weeks, this person's not going to cut it, versus you spending 12 months because after week 4, they say, oh, I don't understand this. After week 8, I still don't understand this. And then what happens is you almost feel like, oh, I didn't train them enough. I'm just going to keep hanging on to them and keep, helping them along the way. And then 12 months later, you realize they never really had it from the beginning. So I
Yeah.
believe if you really put that person under a microscope and really train them for the 12 weeks, you'll kind of have a better indication if they're going to go forward or not. But then
Yeah.
after that, no, absolutely not. I mean, my sales team, I used to meet with them weekly, one-on-one, for the check-ins. What are we doing? How's pipeline? That kind of thing. Then we used to have group sales meetings once a month, which is when we all would experience share. We would all talk with one another. And then quarterly would have an outside speaker or some kind of motivational just difference that would come
Yeah.
in and kind of help them. And then of course we always had our big yearly kind of kickoff. So
Yeah.
you've got
Yeah.
always been in touch with the sales team.
Yeah, yeah, and I love the piece. If you let it drag on for 12 months, I mean, there's some emotional connection. You feel bad. I mean, letting somebody go is the most emotionally painful thing for any leader, I think. I mean,
Sure.
you know, you, I have to guess that most people agonize over it for weeks, if not months, before they actually do it. And they're not doing anybody a favor in that case, right? They're not doing that person a favor. That person, again, I think it takes a year for people to become proficient, and I think it takes 3 to 5 years to become good or excellent at something. In most cases, I mean, some lower level jobs, that timeline has shrunk a little bit, but if we're talking professional level, positions,
Exactly.
it's a long time frame to become the expert, right? So if you hang on to them too long, you're delaying their ability to find a role where they can truly grow roots and become excellent and successful over the long term. Because short-term success doesn't really get anybody very far, right?
And they can be doing a lot of damage to your company and your
Yeah,
reputation over that
yeah,
12 months too.
yeah. So, but it
You,
goes
you
both
as a
ways.
company are losing credibility.
Yeah, yeah. Great. Well, this has been a great conversation. Definitely hope everybody watches this. I think we'll learn a lot about hiring salespeople, just people in general. But I always like to leave everybody with 3 things that you can just begin doing tomorrow that are pretty easy. Deb, just recap kind of 3 things that you think that anybody can take away and start executing on tomorrow.
The first thing is just have that playbook, and maybe that's not something you can do tomorrow, but you can certainly have an outline of it.
Start
So
beginning. Yeah.
you got to have that playbook. You got to hire the right people. You got to have that supportive team. But I would say that, what you could do tomorrow would be to just really start with that, just kind of simple outline of what's that playbook look like, and then what skills match what needs to execute that playbook.
Yeah. Good. So for anybody who's interested in creating a playbook or in learning how to train and onboard and just identify better salespeople, how do we get in touch with you?
So you can call me 312-296-2818. I'm live off my phone,
All
my
right. The
cell, my
Deb
text,
hotline.
anything. Exactly. And then just email and even LinkedIn. So Deb Venable is my LinkedIn. Email at debv@mybtbcoach.com. So yeah, simple
All right, great.
things like that.
All of that will be on the podcast page so people can find you. So if you didn't catch that, go check that out. It was a great pleasure. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It was fantastic. And best of luck to you guys too.